Destroy South Chain. Just a sample of Tarzan's reset. That's a f***ing epic.
Well, it was video of former Illinois House Speaker Michael Madigan heading into the federal court building in Chicago yesterday. As that trial continues, we'll give you a brief update on that before we get into standalone segments on the latest in the various lawsuits against Illinois gun laws. We'll also talk about the efforts to try to consolidate mass transit in the Chicagoland area. But up next, we've got to tackle the Safety Act. So those are things we're going to be looking at here with Illinois in Focus. Be sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and join us each and every weekday morning with America's Talking Network. Get this podcast anywhere you get podcasts. Just search Illinois in Focus, and you'll be updated regularly. And get the headlines at thecentersquare.com. Thecentersquare.com. It is Illinois in Focus. I'm Greg Bishop. Thank you so much for being with us. Coming up next, we'll actually look at the latest in litigation against Illinois gun laws, but also the Illinois State Rifle Association doing a bit of trolling. So we'll see what they had to say about former U.S. Congressman Adam Kinzinger at a campaign event in Missouri. It's right here with Illinois in Focus each and every weekday morning. Let's get into it. It is Illinois in Focus. I'm Greg Bishop. Get the podcast anywhere you get during a campaign event in the backyard of a private residence due to U.S. Senate candidate Lucas Kunce and former Congressman Adam Kinzinger violating commonly known safety rules by firing at steel targets in close range with an AR-15 using incorporated ammunition, or inappropriate ammunition, I should say. The IRSRA would like to offer complimentary firearm and safety training classes to our five-star range in Kankakee, Illinois, Kinzinger's hometown. So clearly, there's something that we need to learn more about this. And in particular, you've got, let's go to Lucas Kunce's rifle. There's a group of people that were there. Then you get some more kind of, what their range looks like, where they went to go shoot at a private residence, but obviously pictures of a reporter being struck by shrapnel. And here we are with, some other pictures that are circulating online of this incident and people trolling the situation as well. You've got pictures that show Kinzinger again shooting. The continued first aid that was being given to the reporter that was there. Some more of the they're gotten the attention of a lot of people, including Kunce's rival Josh Hawley in the Missouri U.S. Senate race. Hawley posted, "When liberals play with guns, people get hurt." TV reporter hit by bullets fragments at Lucas Kunce's campaign event. It shows the candidate there providing first aid. But somebody shared, "Dude, are you serious right now? That's a picture of a Marine treating a gunshot wound. Politics has caused you to lose the plot entirely." Well, back to the Illinois State Rifle Association. What did they have to say about this? They went on again and said that they are offering free classes to Kinzinger and effort to try to get him trained up because they say that they were firing an AR-15 with inappropriate ammunition. Also, they're looking at first aid. So the ISRA says we don't often talk about our range and academy, and we should, because it's one of the finest facilities anywhere in the country. Over the years, we've trained over 50,000 people, including active duty military and civilians, National Guard members, people starring in television shows and movies, and Olympic and Junior Olympic team members. Our range has also won numerous awards and certificates of recognition from the National Guard and other respected organizations. In addition to teaching firearms safety and marksmanship skills, we also teach wound care and first aid training, something that would have been very useful as they applied bandages to the wounded reporter. We're glad he's okay and his injuries were not serious. Over the last several years, both Lucas Kuntz and Adam Kinzinger have called for an assault weapons ban. But the irony is that on Tuesday, they were caught firing the exact type of firearm they want to eliminate from gun collections. This is hypocrisy at its finest. That's from the Illinois State Rifle Association in response to what happened with the reporter having to get some first aid at a campaign event. So where are we at with all of the litigation against gun laws in Illinois? Obviously, people waiting for the Southern District of Illinois Federal Court to make some kind of determination as to what's going to happen with the state's gun and magazine ban that was enacted in January 2023. But we also have the Viramontes case being heard at the Seventh Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals. That's a challenge of Cook County's firearms ban. They're set for a November 12th hearing in the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals. But what's interesting is, they do have the various filings that are shown on the court docket for the appeals court, but I can't access them, including arguments that were received for the gun rights groups, Firearms Policy Coalition, the Second Amendment Foundation. So those have been filed, as judge has declared for the plaintiffs in the case that prohibiting concealed carry on mass transit is unconstitutional. And in that case, you've got an order from the judge in the appeals case accepting the district level judge's order. So it says that, before the appellate's joint status report, you've got the filing from the judge. It's ordered that this appeal will proceed to briefing. So the appeals court is now saying, yes, we'll proceed. The appellants shall file their briefs before November 15th. The appellees shall file their consolidated brief on or before December 16th. And then the appellates should file their reply briefs by January 6th. A review of the short records reveal that these appeals involve more than one appellant represented by different counsel. Counsel for appellants are encouraged to avoid unnecessary duplication by filing joint brief. It goes on to spell out even more of important notice schedules and such. So we'll see where that case goes on the challenge against Illinois' ban on concealed carry. So those are just a few of the updates. Some other things we're going to be tracking as it happens. You've got that court case against Glock from Chicago. There's a status conference set for November 11th, and we'll be watching for that as well. So a lot of things going to be popping off after the election. When it comes to litigation against Illinois' guns regulations, Cook County's gun regulations, and so on. It is Illinois in Focus Daily. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell with us. Get the podcast anywhere you get podcasts. Wake up every morning with America's Talking Network. Here with Illinois in Focus. The Safety Act in McHenry County has been an abject failure. That's according to the McHenry County State's Attorney's Office. I chatted with Patrick Keneally, the state's attorney out of McHenry County yesterday, and he shared with me some of the findings that they were able to glean from the data over the past year. Welcome in. It's Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, get the podcast anywhere you get podcasts. Illinois in Focus, and get the headlines at thecentersquare.com. All right, so let's get into this. The Safety Act report by the numbers from McLean County. You've got, McHenry County. And the Safety Act in McHenry County has been an abject failure, the press release says. Not only has it failed to deliver on what its proponents promised, and that's the court system, being more equitable, it's actually experienced the exact problems predicted by critics. Some background here. Obviously, the Safety, Accountability, Fairness, and Equity Today Act, the SAFE-T Act, it was passed with a broad package of criminal justice reforms and regulations on police, and this was during the January 2021 COVID legislative sessions, where you had the Illinois House at a convention center in Springfield to allow for social distancing and all that. But they ultimately passed this, and it went through, and then they changed it again. Then there were lawsuits filed by counties across the state. The law was put on hold from going into effect until last year in September. The Illinois Supreme Court ruled in favor of getting rid of cash bail. And what this does is, the traditional cash bail system was, if you're arrested for a crime, the judge would assess the allegations against you and then would levy some kind of bond or bail. And then you would pay that bail and you could get out pending trial. Well, people argued that that was unfair for those who didn't have money getting charged with low-level crimes. So they spelled out these categories of crimes that people could be detained for without any cash bail, and people who could go free without any cash bail. Regardless, Illinois is the first state in the country to eliminate cash bail across the entire state, not just in various jurisdictions. So I chatted with Patrick Keneally, the McHenry County State's attorney, yesterday, and he talked about this report and gives us his thoughts on ultimately what some of the takeaway is.
Well, the proponents of the Safety Act promised sort of two things which would seem to be counterintuitive. So one, they promised that crime would not increase and they would be releasing more people charged with crimes pre-trial. That was dubious from the start, and many of the critics pointed that out. And what we found in McHenry County, and one of the things about the criminal justice system is that it's sort of like the most disaggregated system of government that we have in Illinois. And what that means is that sort of what happens in McHenry County isn't necessarily what's going to happen in Cook County, and what's happening in Cook County isn't necessarily what's going to happen in Lake County. We have different officials who execute the laws and who are elected, different judges who are interpreting the laws and enforcing the laws. And so there's going to be sort of different outcomes wherever you go, just because different communities are going to elect different people, despite the fact that the laws are the same. But what we found in McHenry County is that of those people who were released on pretrial, so we took a period of time in 2022 and 2023, and then we took a period of time just after the Safety Act, so the exact times just sort of separated by 1 year, and we asked ourselves, okay, how many people released on bail recommitted an offense while they were on bail during that term? And then we say, okay, how many people on pretrial release after the Safety Act committed an offense during that term? And what we found was that there was a 30% increase in crime by those on pretrial release compared with those on cash bail. Another interesting fact is that they promised that this was going to reduce the jail population because more people were going to be being released because there were so many nonviolent, low-risk offenders who were just being held by the court indiscriminately because the court callously held them because they weren't able to pay. What we actually found is that the jail population has increased in McHenry County. So on the eve of the Safety Act, on September 17th, 2023, there were 204 people in the McHenry County jail. And on September 15th of 2024, which is exactly 1 year later, accounting for the leap year, there were 216 people in the McHenry County jail. We've seen a 280% increase in failures to appear during the first 5 months of the Safety Act. And One of the things that not a lot of people were talking about is the fact that somebody is going to have to fund the court system if defendants are no longer going to do it. So one of the ways that we funded the court system is that every time somebody would get charged with a crime, they would put down a deposit of 10% of the bail. So if your bail was $5,000, you'd put down $500 used to pay things like restitution to victims if and when the case was decided that the defendant was guilty of something. If people are no longer required to put down any deposit of money, what that means is that even if you say, hey, you have to pay a victim this amount in restitution, at the end of the day, none of that, a very little amount of that money is being paid. And we can sort of say, well, like, look, we're going to send you to the collectors and it could affect your credit score. But that's that's not getting the job done. So what we've seen is a 35% reduction in restitution that's paid out to crime victims, as well as a criminal justice system which is not being fully funded. And what that means is that it's not being fully funded in terms of court costs and otherwise. And what that means is that if the defendants who use the system are not going to be required to pay for the system, then the non-criminal taxpayers are going to be the ones that are going to have to fund it. And so that's sort of where we're at.
So again, that's McHenry County State's Attorney Patrick Kenneally chatting with him yesterday and looking at some of the news release that McHenry County put out from the state's attorney's office. Again, a 30% increase in those on pretrial release compared with those on cash bail, an increase in the jail population, a 280% increase in failures to appear, and a 35% reduction in restitution paid to crime victims. And goes on to say that the problem with the SAFE-T Act, written by public defenders and advocates for criminals, is that it denies county judges elected by the communities affected by the alleged crimes to have discretion to detain defendants charged with most crimes, no matter how high risk. Rather, in most cases, a judge has no discretion and must release the defendant. One needs not be a professor of criminology to understand that mandating judges in all circumstances to release high-risk defendants pre-trial is a misguided and unreasonable policy, a policy that proceeded from the ideology of a privileged group of advocates who dictate criminal justice legislation in Illinois, overcoming common sense. But when I asked, some of the different types of crimes that, we have people failing to appear after being released with no cash bail, Kenneally discussed more about the SAFE-T Act and what exactly it does, and really touches on that discretion. He says judges are not allowed to exercise.
One of the things that the SAFE-T Act did is it sort of cut the criminal code into sort of two different sections. One of the sections are detainable offenses, so those are offenses that you can be detained for. Another section of offenses are non-detainable offenses. An example of a detainable offense, which is a low-level offense, would be violating an order of protection or a domestic battery. That's probably the most common crime that we see at the McHenry County Courthouse. I would hazard to guess and infer that a lot more people are being detained on misdemeanor domestic batteries than they ever were in the past, and a lot more people who are more high-risk defendants who are charged with these non-detainable offenses. So those types of defendants who are committing the types of offenses that are sort of repeatable offenses, which are drug crimes and property crimes, and who, despite the fact that they have been involved in the criminal justice system for quite some time, don't find the deterrent aspect of the criminal justice system to be a significant impetus to their behavior. Despite the fact that they're high risk and despite the fact that these are very real crimes that cause people to suffer, they are being released, of course, to commit more crimes because a judge cannot hold them. So even if a judge is convinced with respect to somebody who's charged with, let's say, a fentanyl-based offense, that they are going to go out and continue to engage in drug trafficking, a judge cannot hold that person because it's within this realm of non-detainable offense, which is sort of one of my ongoing critiques of the SAFE-T Act, which is if you want to get rid of cash bail, that's fine, and I guess we could all sort of adjust to that. But what you can't do is say that determine an outcome before it has a chance to be adjudicated and argued. What you can't do is say it doesn't matter who this person is or the risk that they pose to the community. If they've committed X crime, they're automatically released, because that's just an entirely arbitrary decision. And the whole point of a judge is to weigh the facts and make a just determination for the communities that elected them, and they are being deprived that in many instances under the Safety Act.
So again, Patrick Kenneally, state's attorney from the county of McHenry, talking about the Safety Act a year after and some change when it was put into place by the Illinois Supreme Court following legislation signed by the governor that was ultimately blocked by lower courts from being implemented, getting rid of cash bail across the state. Proponents of it, again, say that, listen, it's inequitable and people getting charged with low-level crimes couldn't afford to get out of jail and they would sit there and languish. But opponents saying that, listen, the judges need more discretion to be able to keep people who are a flight risk or people who are possibly going to fail to appear and so on, which in McHenry County, those numbers showing that 280% increase of failures to appear, reduction in restitution payments, 30% increase of those on pretrial release compared to those with cash bail, increased jail population, just some of those things. All right, we'll definitely be hearing more about that, I imagine. It is Illinois in Focus. I'm Greg Bishop, and get the podcast anywhere you get podcasts. All right, I know some of you have been experiencing some dropouts. I am as well seeing that on my encoder, but here's the deal. We record these segments locally, so if you need to go back and check on something, you could do so at America's Talking Network. Get segments, also get news clips from Illinois and elsewhere from across the country with America's Talking Network. Plus, you get the podcast uninterrupted anywhere you get podcasts. Just search Illinois in Focus. All right, coming up next, we'll talk about mass transit in the Chicagoland area and a push to try to consolidate things. All right, so that's coming up here with Illinois in Focus Daily.
%72% of the people who were surveyed want to stop building new roads. Stop building new roads and instead invest in transit.
If you ask voters if they support unifying the CTA, Metra, PACE, and RTA into one agency, voters across Illinois support that idea by a 2-to-1 margin.
The system needs more money, and it's PACE's obligation to provide service in the suburbs. And I think putting us all in one service board will make those needs in the outer areas not as important.
Well, as agencies push back, the new poll shows public favor for consolidating mass transit in the Chicagoland area. It's Illinois in Focus. Get the headlines at thecentersquare.com. The latest story from Kevin Bessler has just that headline about public transit. And let's delve into this a bit as we might see some action on this during fall veto session after the election. Illinois legislators are going to be coming back for 6 scheduled days. We'll obviously talk a lot about what's expected and what's likely going to fall flat. But a new poll commissioned by a group of environmental jobs proponents shows that public support for consolidating Chicago's mass transit agencies is there. The Illinois Clean Jobs Coalition said by a 2-to-1 margin, Illinoisans favor combining the Chicago Transit Authority, MACE, Metra, PACE, and the Regional Transit Authority. Statewide, 46% of respondents supported the unification of the agency, while 21% were opposed. So clearly, this is an issue that you have pollsters going out asking, hey, do you think we should consolidate these agencies? And listen, government consolidation has always been something at the top of the ticket for some who want reform in Illinois, because Illinois has, I think, the most government bodies of any state. We've got like 7,000 plus. You got to talk about not just county governments, municipal governments, township governments, school district governments, taxing bodies for community colleges, taxing bodies for mosquito abatement districts, taxing bodies for park districts, all of this layered on. So if you pull up your property tax bill, you'll see all of these different taxing bodies. Well, Illinois has 7,000 plus, I believe. So there's always been a push for consolidation of, like, say, townships have practically the same boundaries as a village or a city. Why not just combine all of that, save on manpower and such? And there's always been pushback by those who manage these taxing bodies. A variety of things, jobs, local control, and a variety of other arguments made to say we don't want consolidation. But when it comes to the mass transit situation, there's a $730 million funding cliff. And a lot of that's because, well, COVID dollars are drying up. You've got deferred maintenance, billions of dollars of deferred maintenance on tracks and equipment and such. So it led to State Representative Beth Canty, a Democrat, taking to a podium and sharing her thoughts about why this needs to be all consolidated.
There wasn't a way for the RTA to require the three service agencies to work together. You either passed their budgets or you didn't. For example, the CTA, Metra, and PACE all have separate apps that don't work well together or don't work together at all, forcing people to juggle multiple apps, multiple schedules, and separate fares that just don't work as well as they should. What my constituents want is to hop on a train to take in a game or a show, have a seamless transition to a bus or an L, pay one fare, and arrive at their destination on time. They want to take transit to get from Arlington Heights to Schaumburg or to get to school at Harper College. But those suburb to suburb bus routes were cut years ago, and the regional connectivity just isn't happening. That's why, if you ask voters if they support unifying the CTA, Metra, PACE, and RTA into one agency, voters across Illinois support that idea by a 2-to-1 margin. By margins of 54 to 27% in Chicago, 49 to 21% in suburban Cook County, and 53 to 19% in the collar counties. The data shows us that efforts to pit the city of Chicago against the Cook County suburbs and the collar counties are not working.
So Mary Beth Canty sharing her thoughts about the outcome of this poll from the Illinois Clean Jobs Coalition. State Representative Eva Delgado also sharing her thoughts, and in particular, what she says is a pretty prominent issue that voters support in the Chicagoland area.
People want to see real solutions. They don't want to see Band-Aids, and they don't want to see a failed status quo. 72% of the people who were surveyed want to stop building new roads. Stop building new roads. And instead invest in transit, invest in bikes, invest in the infrastructure that allows mobility to be able to continue without having to jump in a car. And the MMA is a major step forward for that policy, and it gets to what the vast majority of most Illinois voters want. The MMA will unify CTA, PACE, Metra, and RTA into one better functioning, more efficient, and more effective transit agency that provides seamless apps, seamless schedules, and seamless fares. It's just common sense. Our transit agencies face a $730 million funding cliff, and legislators in Springfield have said very clearly that there will be no new revenue unless there is real reform.
Well, in July, though, a Senate Transportation Committee, they had a series of them, talking with agency directors across the mass transit space in Illinois. And in July's hearing, you had PACE Executive Director Melinda Metzger saying that consolidation wouldn't be beneficial.
Quite honestly, we've read the report. We all are in favor. I'm going to speak for us all. You guys can say I'm wrong, but we're all in favor of doing what's best for the customer. We all want to do the best job we can. I do not believe that combining us into one organization will make us better. First of all, we all have board members who are local, who understand the local needs, and they give us a lot of input. Secondly, we all have different service areas. I cover, 3,500 square miles, 15 times the city of Chicago. To put us all under one, do a good job, but just there's pressures in different organizations.
So clearly, there's not an appetite from some of the agency executive directors to consolidate, saying it's expected it could take away from the agency's ability to better manage things. So we'll see what happens there in this space as we get closer to fall veto session. And if it's going to be something that comes up then, or if it's going to be something that is brought up in the new General Assembly that is going to be seated in mid-January. So if you want to stay up to date on that and other things impacting you, the Illinois taxpayer, be sure to get the newsletter at thecentersquare.com, and also get the podcast each and every weekday morning here with Illinois in Focus, anywhere you get podcasts, and wake up with us live for Illinois in Focus with America's Talking Network. Well, there he is today. Just got that video in from Jim Talamonte as he is in Chicago for the start of the Madigan trial day 3. And he's facing corruption charges. Yesterday, for day 2, utility officials and ex-lawmakers clashed with the defense on day 2 of that corruption trial. And Jim's story here will show you this and read through a bit. ComEd connections and former state legislators are in the spotlight during the days of the corruption trial here in day 2. Day 3 starting today. Former state representative, longtime ally of Madigan's, also facing charges, Michael McLean. You had Scott Vogt, the ComEd executive, was carried over from the previous day. Then you've got Lou Lang, who's possibly going to be testifying. All of this obviously is circling the Madigan era for what prosecutors say was a 10-year bribery scheme called Madigan Enterprise. So another story we'll stay on top of for you at thecentersquare.com. So check that out. All right, guys, that's all I got for you today. Got to get out of here. We've got a couple of things going on. The governor's got 3 events he's going to be at, so we'll see what kind of off-topic questions he's asked. You've also got the Illinois State Board of Education going to be talking about the Illinois Report Card, which always is interesting to delve into to see how well the state's school kids are doing in reading, writing, arithmetic, math, English language arts, how much it costs per student to educate in various districts, and so on. So we may get more information about all of that as well today. It is Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell with America's Talking Network, and get the podcast anywhere you get podcasts. And don't forget, get that newsletter from thecentersquare.com.